I started using Audible a couple months ago, and I've never. It's not that I'm not a big fan of Audible. I just really enjoy reading, and I haven't really had time to listen to a book. I'm not big on whatever I'm doing, I want to focus on that thing. I don't listen to things as I'm doing something else, but I found myself in a unique position where I could try it. So I did. The first book I listened to was Mastery by Robert Greene. I was already a fan of Mr. Greene. I studied his work. When I was putting together my elemental course, it's just 4 classes, one for each of the 4 elements. And it compares the elements to psychosocial development, behavioral development, cognitive development, those sorts of things. So I didn't set out to use his work, but I came across it and it was very relevant. And I was like, wow, I like this guy. I really like this guy. So let me listen to this book. As I was listening to it, I don't know if you speak a different language. I speak bits and pieces of a couple other languages, but nothing. I'm not fluent. I am fluent in astrology, though. That's a language for me. So as I was listening to this book, it was almost like hearing it in English when they were reading it to me was my second language, and my brain was automatically translating it into astrology. Does that make sense? So I guess if you're an English speaker and you learn French, then you go to a French speaking place, or you're talking to someone who speaks French, you hear it in French, but then your brain sort of translates it to English, and then as you speak, you think in English and you have to translate it to French. That's how it was when I was listening to this. And I'd experienced this before when I was studying the different, psychological theories and things like that, but never to the level that I experienced it as I was listening to Mastery. It's that's significant. I'm into that. I finished it and I was like, I have to do something with this. I have to do something with this work. And that's exactly what the book is about, is your work, my work, our work. It's about finding, Robert calls it your life's task. You can call it what you're meant to do, your purpose. It throws in that fate versus free will argument. But when you go through it, you realize that you're exercising your free will to use what's already buried within you. So it's not really a fate thing. It's not like you're meant to do this one thing in life and you have to do this. You have a choice. But it's something that's already a part of you. So it's not going against your nature. It's not inhibiting your free will. It's almost like freeing your will, I guess would be a good way to put it. And he tells you how to do that in this book. When I said I want to translate it to astrology, what I meant is I'm going to read it. I'm just going to start reading the book. I've never structured the translation process before, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. I was thinking I could just read parts of it and explain the astrology. It probably won't be perfect at first. It probably won't ever be perfect, and that's fine. It's not supposed to be, but I'm sure I'm gonna learn as I go. If you have any feedback, I would greatly appreciate it. I do want to point out before I start the cover of the book. What I picked up on as I went through the book, and if you study astrology, you know that when it comes to like career, what you're supposed to do in life, that sort of thing, like how you make your money, how you gather resources, how you take care of yourself, all those things are earth element things. Venus, Mercury, Saturn, earth houses, earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, second house, sixth house, 10th house, that sort of thing. Those are the parts of the chart that you would get to find those. And there's like this black triangle pointing down, but then there's the gold triangles coming up, and gold yellow, and that would be the air element. There's in all sorts of philosophies, beliefs, practices, whatever you want to call them, there's the theme of spirit and body coming together, air and earth coming together. So we've got the earth triangle and the air triangle, and I just thought that was really cool. I don't know if he did that on purpose, but I thought it was worth pointing out. And then his name is in red, which to me represents the sun, the individual, the uniqueness, the expressive core of yourself. So even the cover for me is very symbolic. You might think that's cool, you might not. But I like it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And we'll talk about it as we go along. Or I'll talk about it since this is pre-recorded. If you're a member of my Patreon, there will be live chats to talk about this kind of stuff, or you can message me, whatever. Even if you're not a member of my Patreon, you can still message me, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that I can, or hear any ideas that you have. So, introduction. The ultimate power. He starts with a quote by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Everyone holds his fortune in his own hands, like a sculptor, the raw material he will fashion into a figure. But it's the same with that type of artistic activity as with all others. We are merely born with the capability to do it. The skill to mold the material into what we want must be learned and attentively cultivated. That's very Virgo. I guess I could just start right there. Our very sixth house. The difference between the houses and the signs. The sign is sort of like the setting of a movie. It's the background, it's the environment, it's what the room looks like, what the space looks like. The house is what you do there. It's a behavior or an expression. So sixth house is how you build your skill. It has to do with building skill, mentor, mentee, learning, honing your craft, things that you're responsible for taking care of, ways that you can get better. All of those things are sixth house. Virgo is more like a place where you can do something like that. Virgo is where you can break things down and be discerning. And the sixth house is sort of how you discern what you need to do, what you need to take care of, how you discern what you do to grow. There exists a form of power and intelligence that represents the high point of human potential. It is the source of the greatest achievements and discoveries in histories. It is an intelligence that is not taught in our schools nor analyzed by professors, but almost all of us at some point have had glimpses of it in our own experience. It often comes to us in a period of tension, facing a deadline, the urgent need to solve a problem, a crisis of sorts. Or it can come as the result of constant work on a project. In any event, pressed by circumstances, we feel unusually energized and focused. Our minds become completely absorbed in the task before us. This intense concentration sparks all kinds of ideas. They come to us as we fall asleep, out of nowhere, as if springing from our unconscious. At these times, other people seem less resistant to our influence. Perhaps we are more attentive to them, or we appear to have a special power that inspires their respect. We might normally experience life in a passive mode, constantly reacting to this or that incident, but for these days or weeks, we feel like we can determine events and make things happen. So right there, I want to say, what I hear when I read this is, when you're talking about a deadline, an urgent need to solve a problem, there's a restriction there, a time restriction. Constant work on a project is very disciplined sounding, so that makes me think Saturn, Capricorn. When we are restricted to the task and we have to rely on our discipline to get it done, and we're not thinking about it, it's almost like it frees us to just be ourselves because we're unable to overthink it. And this makes me think of the axis between, I should have got that first. So at the top of the or at my top of the zodiac, how I look at it sometimes, at one end of the zodiac you have Saturn and Capricorn and Saturn and Aquarius. Those two signs are together. And then directly across from them, opposing them, you got the Sun and the Moon in Leo and Cancer. I think of this as sort of one big axis. It's like the trunk of the tree, where the Sun and the Moon are at the bottom, Cancer and Leo are at the bottom, your internal self and your external self, and then Saturn is at the top, right? So Saturn would be, because of the discipline and the work that you've done, this is the fruit that grows, sort of thing. And when you are not listening to what everybody else tells you to grow, when you're just allowing yourself to come through, there's this merging of the cardinal and the fixed energies, with like the Moon and Cancer being cardinal and the Sun and Leo being fixed. Yourself is fixed. You are not moving. Like, you are sort of anchored in place, and it's just allowing this new thing to happen because you're immovable at that point. You're just, it's almost like a flow. Like he says, it's as if it springs up from our unconscious, which is the Moon. And it's almost like you're in the zone. That's what we say, right? Everybody's been in the zone at some point. When you're in the zone and you're just going and it's like you can just juggle all these things and handle all these things, and you just go. That's what I think of when I think of or that axis, the Sun and the Moon across from Saturn, is what I think of when I think of being in the zone. All of the skill that you've developed, all of the everything. You're just letting yourself come out in your work. And then the influence of other people and having other people's attention, that's very Leo Aquarius axis. That's Leo is like the stage, and Aquarius is the crowd, the theater, wherever everybody else is sitting. That's your audience, right? And we are part of that, but we are still our individual selves and all of that. I spilled coffee on my book this morning. The pages are sticking together. I spilled coffee everywhere. Anyways, I cleaned it up. We could express this power in the following way. Most of the time, we live in an interior world of dreams, desires, and obsessive thoughts. But in this period of exceptional creativity, which is very Sun, Leo, 5th house, in this period of exceptional creativity, we are impelled by the need to get something done that has a practical effect. How Saturnian? We force ourselves to step outside of our inner chamber of habitual thoughts and connect to the world. There's that Leo Aquarius connection again. How we connect to the world, to other people, to reality. Saturn, reality. Instead of flitting here and there in a state of perpetual distraction, our minds focus and penetrate to the core of something real. At these moments, it is as if our minds, turned outward, are now flooded with light from the world around us, and suddenly exposed to new details and ideas, we become more inspired and creative. Fire is our animating principle. It's what we are passionate about. Air is our mind, our cognitive ability. When those things become fixed, like in Aquarius, your mind becomes fixed, becomes focused. It's not that you're closed-minded, although that can happen, but that's not a healthy expression of the mental fixed energy. When your mind is fixed, let me back up. So the 3 air signs, you start with Gemini, that's mutable air. Libra is cardinal air, and Aquarius is fixed air. So you start with a mutable mind. That means it's cardinal and fixed. That means you're looking for the new thing, or the new thing is there. You're stepping through that doorway into the new thing. You're pivoting toward the new thing. Fixed is not moving. It deals with, like, it's sustaining. It's not initiating. Cardinal means it's initiating, and fixed means it's sustaining. So your mind starts out naturally like that. It's just your perception, right? This is how you're born, to notice the new things and initiate all these new thoughts. You're learning all this language, but you're also remembering and storing the things that you take in. So those things are fixed. That's how we build our memory. That's how your brain maps the patterns for everything, for speech, for movement, anything. Anything you learn becomes fixed. And you already have your mindset, so that's, like, you're born with that. And it's flexible, right? Because as you learn, you sort of change your mind about things, but that doesn't change, like, how your mind works. Your mind's going to work the same way. That's the fixed part as you learn these new things. Libra, the cardinal mindset, is what we need to initiate, what we need to reach out for, how we get what we're missing. This is our approach to life, our approach to new ideas, to learning new things, to hearing a different opinion, to figuring out how to do something we don't know how to do. That's the cardinal energy. It's supposed to go outward. At some point, you stop searching for so many new things. It's not that you're closed off to those new things. It's just that you've realize the thing that you're missing. This is like big picture. This is not day to day how we interact with other people. But you do figure out, like, this is what I believe, this is what I think, this is what I want to do, this is my thing that I need to focus on. If you meditate, if you're into like Zen stuff, you know, you start out with monkey brain, where the thoughts are just kind of like flitting here and there, and you're trying to still your mind, and you can't, because you can't make the thoughts stop coming and going. You just can't. So you have to fix your mind to not be distracted by those thoughts. And yeah, you know, this thought is going to come and that thought's going to come, and maybe you're going to follow that, but eventually you get to this point where your mind is anchored. That's what we're trying to get to, an anchored mind that can sustain our cognitive ability to do what we need to do, to not be so distracted by anything, so we can focus. You are creating a laser focus with your air. So that's what I think of when he says that your mind's focus and penetrate the core of something real. And the language he uses, like, you know, real, that's a Saturn thing. So we're really working with not just the air signs and the earth signs and all of the things that go with air and earth elements in the zodiac, but this axis between Leo and Aquarius. There's a lot of fixed cross stuff that goes on with this, which I think is really cool, because the fixed cross sort of represents like your physical self in the world as it's connected to what's beyond you, divinity, I guess you could say, your higher self, the greater you, God, whatever you want to call it. And he talks a lot about that in this book without saying so. So once the deadline has passed or the crisis is over, this feeling of power and heightened creativity generally fades away. We return to our distracted state and the sense of control is gone. If only we could manufacture this feeling or somehow keep it alive longer. But it seems so mysterious and elusive. The deadline has passed, the Saturn energy is gone. When you take away, when you're working with oppositions, there's this balancing act that they do. One uses the other. So if you've got like Saturn and the Sun, and you take away Saturn, then the Sun doesn't. It's like there's nobody to go back and forth with. So you're just kind of talking to yourself. Why are you talking at all? And it falls off. So you need that oppositional energy to create whatever it is that will be created between those two. This creative force has to come from that opposition between Saturn and the Sun. And the sense of control, that's Saturn, control, you know. Not that Scorpio knows anything about control, but yeah. The problem we face is that this form of power and intelligence is either ignored as a subject of study or surrounded by all kinds of myths and misconceptions, all of which only add to the mystery. We imagine that creativity and brilliance just appear out of nowhere, the fruit of natural talent, or perhaps of a good mood, or an alignment of the stars. It would be an immense help to clear up the mystery, to name this feeling of power, to examine its roots, to define the kind of intelligence that leads to it, and to understand how it can be manufactured and maintained. sometimes when I'm like reading stuff, I think they've got to be on the level. They're just using too many words that, you know, if you know, you know type thing, but they never come out and say it, so I'm just left sort of wondering. The fruit of natural talent. Remember what I said about Capricorn? That's where you bear your fruit. Anyways. Let us call this sensation mastery. The feeling that we have a greater command of reality, of other people, and of ourselves. Although it might be something we experience for only a short while, for others, masters of their field, it becomes their way of life, their way of seeing the world, their mindset, right? Such masters include Leonardo da Vinci, Napoleon Bonaparte, Charles Darwin, Thomas Edison, and Martha Graham, among many others. And I do want to look at some of their charts while we're doing this too, just to see what's going on. And at the root of this power is a simple process that leads to mastery, one that is accessible to all of us. The process can be illustrated in the following manner. Let us say we are learning the piano or entering a new job where we must acquire certain skills. We've all been there, right? In the beginning, we're outsiders. Our initial impressions of the piano or the work environment are based on prejudgments and often contain an element of fear. When we first study the piano, the keyboard looks rather intimidating. We don't understand the relationship between the keys, the chords, the pedals, and everything else that goes into creating music. In a new job situation, we're ignorant of the power relationships between people, the psychology of our boss, the rules and procedures that are considered critical for success. We are confused. The knowledge we need in both cases is over our heads. Although we might enter these situations with excitement about what we can learn or do with our new skills, we quickly realize how much hard work there is ahead of us. The great danger is that we give into feelings of boredom, impatience, fear, and confusion. We stop observing and learning. The process comes to a halt. If, on the other hand, we manage these emotions and allow time to take its course, something remarkable begins to take shape. As we continue to observe and follow the lead of others, we gain clarity, learning the rules and seeing how things work and fit together. If we keep practicing, we gain fluency. Basic skills are mastered, allowing us to take on a newer and more exciting challenges. We begin to see connections that were invisible to us before. We slowly gain confidence in our ability to solve problems or overcome weaknesses through sheer persistence. At a certain point, we move from student to practitioner. We try out our own ideas, gaining valuable feedback in the process, and we use our expanding knowledge in ways that are increasingly creative. Instead of just learning how others do things, we bring our own style and individuality into play. As years go by and we remain faithful to this process, yet another leap takes place: mastery. The keyboard is no longer something outside of us. It is internalized and becomes part of our nervous system, our fingertips. In our career, we now have a feel for the group dynamic, the current state of business. We can apply this feel to social situations, seeing deeper into other people and anticipating their reactions. We can make decisions that are rapid and highly creative. Ideas come to us. We have learned the rules so well that we can now be the ones to break or rewrite them. When we're talking about Earth, actually let me just talk about them together. The first Earth and air signs, Taurus and Gemini. Taurus is fixed. It's Earth. It's where you are secure and comfortable, where you can let your guard down. It's ruled by Venus, and Venus is what makes you comfortable, what helps calm you down. I think of Venus as your bonding instinct. What do you want to bond to? What do you need? What do you, not just who, but what do you value? When you're in the Taurus space, that's where you can let your guard down and relax and be calm and just be comfortable, right? But we can't stay in that space. That's the thing about the zodiac. It's a wheel. We're not meant to stay in each space forever. We're meant to move into the next space. The space we're in gets us ready for the next space. And when we get to that space, it's like, oh, we sort of learned something from being in the last space, and now we're getting ready to move into the next space. Some astrologers say there's like and this is true, that when you move from one sign to the other, there's like a correctiveness that goes along with it. Like when you move into Taurus from Aries, it tones down that fiery passion, fight competitiveness. Like it calms it down so it doesn't get too out of control. When you're in Taurus, you might get a little lazy, you might get a little too cozy and comfy. So the curiosity of the Gemini space pulls you out of that Taurus space. It keeps you from being too stuck in the comfort and the coziness, keeps you from becoming hedonistic. So you got to move into that Gemini. We're talking about Taurus and Gemini in the beginning. The thing that calms you down, that you are attracted to, that makes you comfortable, you know, that you're kind of like, that you value. And here he uses the example of piano. You're curious about it, so you move into that space. The next set would be Virgo and Libra. Virgo is where we break things down, where we learn to discern this from that and do the skill thing and the step-by-step thing. And Libra is like, what are we missing mentally? What is the thing that I need to look for that I don't understand? So this is where you build your skill. This is where you connect to the right teachers, connect to the right music, connect to the right everything. And you build your skill in that way. And you can get really good at it. And you can teach other people. Like it becomes more you. You know, it becomes more of your own thing. The last step that he's talking about, he says, what does he call it? Yet another leap takes place to mastery. I love that he says, as years go by and we remain faithful to this process, yet another leap takes place to mastery. That's so Sagittarian, so Jupiter and Sagittarius to me. I think of Sagittarius as where you have to take sort of a leap of faith. And Jupiter, you know, is like big, faithful planet. Potential. In order to realize your greatest potential, you have to take that leap of faith. And that takes you to Capricorn and then to Aquarius. He says the keyboard is no longer something outside of us. It is internalized and becomes part of our nervous system. The nervous system is air. Air becomes fixed in Aquarius. So these things that you are connecting to, that you are learning, all of these skills, it's weird how this happens. I want to show you on some. Let me grab something real quick. This isn't the exact one I'm looking for, but it'll work if you can see it. That light, that crazy light. Hang on. Let me turn that off. Let me turn this off. Okay, you can see this better now. So, this is nice and colored in. The black and the yellow, not the song, but never mind, you have to be old enough to know what I'm talking about. Earth and air, okay? So Taurus and Gemini, and then Virgo and Libra, over here Earth and air, and then up here Capricorn and Aquarius, earth and air. This chart has the modern rulers, the modern planetary rulers, but just don't worry about that for a second. Just pretend like this is Saturn up here with Aquarius. So it's like, once you get, this is where you start out. You say, this is the thing that I like, this is the thing that I value, this thing brings me comfort. You get really curious about it, and you start building your skill in that area. You connect to things that you don't know about it, so you learn and you build your skill. You take your leap of faith in Sagittarius, and then you come up here to this mastery level, right? So not only have you gone from start to finish with the air and earth, now it also opposes the sun and the moon, the Cancer and Leo, right? It opposes water and fire. So now you've got all four elements. It's like, it makes me think of a dream catcher in a way. You know how those webs are woven together in like this perfect balance? So you've got this triangle going on, and it's balanced with the sun and the moon. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's like that on purpose. I think that in order to embody spirit, and when I say embody spirit, I don't mean like something super religious with that. It doesn't even have to be like a faith thing or a spiritual thing at all. It could just be when you figure out your shit, what you want to do, and you know your mind is flowing into the work you do, and you're not just working a job for the paycheck. Now you're intrinsically motivated in what you do. You're doing the thing that you want to do, that you enjoy doing. You do learn more quickly because you're more into it. It's a neurological thing. It's also just common sense, right? If I'm not into this, I'm not going to be into it, so I'm not going to learn it as well. But if it's something I'm really interested in, then of course I'm going to pick it up better. And those things are sort of held down, anchored, balanced by who we are at our core, our sun and moon, like our inner self and our outer self. That's the root of the whole tree, is the sun and the moon. Like this, the tree goes up this and out, and this is the root. Like, you are the root. So when you're looking for, what do I want to do with my life, what sort of career do I want to have, what sort of work do I need to do, it starts with you. That's the root of the whole thing. Who you are at your core. What do you guys think about that? I'm going to read a little bit more of this, and then I think I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to make these about 45 minutes or an hour long, maybe. Some might be shorter. We'll see. We'll see what kind of feedback I get on this. Let's see. Oh, and then mastery. It says we have learned the rules so well that now we can be the ones to break or rewrite them. Rules, Saturn and Capricorn, but you've learned them so well that you can break them or make your own rules. This wild thing happens when Saturn moves from Capricorn to Aquarius. It's like this letting go. And the modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, which is the rule breaker, the revolutionary planet, the one that, like, the rebel the one that changes the structure, that, you know, the Tower card in tarot. It's not that everything is coming crashing down. That's not healthy Uranus, just to destroy things and tear things up just because. That's more of a like an Aries Mars thing. Uranus creates its own rules because you're going from the earth energy with Saturn to the air energy with Saturn. So Uranus is very much like a Saturn air energy. What happens when you take the structure creator, because Saturn is what gives things boundaries, it's what gives things shape and structure and definition. What happens when you take that outside of the material world into the great beyond, into the mental landscape? You can create all sorts of new ideas, all these new things start coming to you. What if we did this, and what if we did this? And then you can make those things real, and they start their own life cycle. Your work takes on its own little life cycle around the zodiac, and that's probably something for later on, but it's just cool how it works. In the process leading to this ultimate form of power, we can identify 3 distinct phases or levels. 3 distinct phases or levels. 1 phase, 2 phase, 3 phase. The first is the apprenticeship. The second is the creative active. The third, mastery. In the first phase, we stand on the outside of our field, learning as much as we can of the basic elements and rules. We only have a partial picture of the field, and so our powers are limited. In the second phase, through much practice and immersion, we see into the inside of the machinery, how things connect with one another, and thus gain a more comprehensive understanding of the subject. With this comes a new power, the ability to experiment and creatively play with the elements involved. In the third phase, our degree of knowledge, experience, and focus is so deep that we can now see the whole picture with complete clarity. We have access to the heart of life. That's another Leo sun thing, the heart of life. To human nature and natural phenomena. That is why the artwork of masters touches us to the core. The artist has captured something of the essence of reality. That is why the brilliant scientist can uncover a new law of physics, and the inventor or entrepreneur can hit upon something no one else has imagined. We can call this power intuition, but intuition is nothing more than a sudden and immediate seizing of what is real without the need for words or formulas. What is real, Saturn, intuition, Moon. Once you get here, that balance thing happens again, right? Just like with Aquarius and Leo, that balance thing happens. Once you come, it's like coming face to face with that energy. If you imagine like traveling around the zodiac, once you get here, now you're face to face. Once you get here in Capricorn, with Saturn, now you're face to face with your intuition, with your roots in the 4th house, your roots. The Moon, your subconscious. That's how I read that. That's how I interpret that in my astrological language. Let me read it one more time. Go back. We can call this power intuition, but intuition is nothing more than a sudden and immediate seizing of what is real, without the need for words or formulas. The words and formulas may come later, but this flash of intuition is what ultimately brings us closer to reality, as our minds suddenly become illuminated by some particle of truth previously hidden to us and to others. An animal has the capacity to learn, but it largely relies on its instincts to connect to its surroundings and save itself from danger. Through instinct, it can act quickly and effectively. The human relies instead on thinking and rationality to understand its environment. But such thinking can be slow, and then its slowness can become ineffective. So much of our obsessive internal thought process tends to disconnect us from the world. Intuitive powers at the mastery level are a mix of the instinctive and the rational. The instinctive and the rational. Instinctive is like earth. Rational is like mental thinking. Instinctive powers at the mastery level are a mix of the instinctive and the rational, the conscious and the unconscious, the sun and the moon, the human and the animal. It is our way of making sudden and powerful connections to the environment, to feeling or thinking inside things. As children, we had some of this intuitive power and spontaneity, but it is generally drummed out of us by all of the information that overloads our minds over time. Masters return to this childlike state, their works displaying degrees of spontaneity and access to the unconscious, but at a much higher level than the child. So if you take this energy, see when I said you go up to this Saturnian energy in earth and air, it's not that you leave these behind, it's that you've done this work, so this is now a part of you. You've done this work, so this is now a part of you. What you value and what you're curious about, now you take those things and you carry them into this place where you want to build your skill and connect to things. Because we're talking about Venus and Mercury. And then we've got Mercury and Venus. So those parts of you carry with you. You're just taking them to a new level of awareness so you can attain something new with them. You're developing your Mercury and Venus is what you're doing. Your Venus being your bonding instincts, what you value, what calms you down, what you connect to. Mercury being your perception, your curiosity, your mind, You're taking those things to the next phase and doing this new thing with them in this new environment. They're still doing the same thing. It's not a totally new thing, but you're just doing it in a new place. So they get to learn new skills, and then they can go up, I think, and sort of like culminate into this Saturnian energy is sort of what it's like. So when he says that masters return to this childlike state, masters don't just totally rely on their skill. And I've done this before, where you get so focused on the technicality of something, you want to be technically good at it, you forget to just let it flow sometimes, to just sort of like have fun with it. Like say you're drawing a picture and you want it to be so accurate and technically correct, you forget to just draw the picture. One place where I hear technical a lot is when I'm watching the UFC fights. There's a technical fighter, is a very technical fighter, but then you have fighters who may not be as technical, but they have like a natural talent for it. It's like just an intuitive kind of flow with them. But when you can find a fighter that has the natural talent and the technical skill, like they've worked on their technical skill, because that's not something that comes natural. You have to work to be technically accurate. That's when you get the really great fighters. If you have somebody who, anything, that's what this whole thing is about. The thing that you're naturally good at, that you really enjoy, you hone your skills with that. You find ways to better yourself in that area. That's how you become that master level thing. It takes both. You can't just be technically good at something or be like naturally gifted. You gotta work both of them. You gotta work it from both angles. You have to use it as like a bridge or a scale, and you need that middle axis to balance it. You need them to come together. If we move through the process to this endpoint, we activate the intuitive power latent in every human brain, one that we may have briefly experienced when we work so deeply on a single project or problem. In fact, often in life we have glimpses of this power. For instance, when we have an inkling of what will come next in a particular situation. That light is going to be crazy, so I might have to stop in a second. For instance, when we have an inkling of what will come next in a particular situation, or when the perfect answer to a problem comes to us out of nowhere. That's another Uranian thing, right? Just like a lightning strike, that idea just hit me. But these moments are ephemeral and not based on enough experience to make them repeatable. When we reach mastery, this intuition is a power at our command, the fruit of working through the lengthier process. And because the world prizes creativity and this ability to uncover new aspects of reality, it brings us tremendous practical power as well. Our audience appreciates it, so now we have power called like money, resources to build ourselves with. That's one thing that's meant by practical power. It's something that can be used in the world, something that people, a practical thing that people can use from us. We're giving the world something practical. So we have a practical power. Think of mastery in this way. Throughout history, men and women have felt trapped by the limitations of their consciousness, by their lack of contact with reality and the power to affect the world around them. They have sought all kinds of shortcuts to this expanded consciousness and sense of control in the form of magic rituals, trances, incantations, and drugs. They have devoted their lives to alchemy in search of the philosopher's stone, the elusive substance that transformed all matter into gold. This hunger for the magical shortcut has survived to our day in the form of simple formulas for success, ancient secrets finally revealed in which a mere change of attitude will attract the right energy. There is a grain of truth and practicality in all of these efforts. For instance, the emphasis in magic on deep focus. But in the end, all of the searching is centered on something that doesn't exist. The effortless path to practical power, the quick and easy solution, the El Dorado of the mind. At the same time that so many people lose themselves in these endless fantasies, they ignore the real power, the one real power that they actually possess. And unlike magic or simplistic formulas, we can see the material effects of this power in history. The great discoveries and inventions, the magnificent buildings and works of art, the technological prowess we possess, all works of the masterful mind. This power brings to those who possess it the kind of connection to reality and the ability to alter the world that the mystics and magicians of the past could only dream of. Over the centuries, people have placed a wall around such mastery. They have called it genius and have thought of it as inaccessible. They have seen it as the product of privilege, inborn talent, or just the right alignment of the stars. They have made it seem as if it were as elusive as magic. But that wall is imaginary. That's another reference to decans, actually. And going from like Capricorn to Aquarius, the wall is imaginary, going beyond the wall, pushing past the wall. This is the real secret. The brain that we possess is the work of 6 million years of development And more than anything else, this evolution of the brain was designed to lead us to mastery, the latent power within us all. I'm going to stop right there. That's the end of that part of the book. And I do want to say that when I first heard that part, I thought, why is he knocking magic and alchemy? Those are very valid forms of self-development. And then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, I know what he means. You know, it's people who use those as a shortcut, who think, I can just do this ritual and then I'll be rich, or I'll have what I need, or I'll have what I want, or I'll be powerful, or everybody will respect me, or they want the thing without putting in the work. And no matter what path of development you take, you have to do the path. You have to walk along the path. You have to go step by step and get there. You can't just jump to the end. It doesn't work like that. Even in magic and alchemy, there's a process. There's work that has to be done, and it gets monotonous. It gets tedious. It gets hard. But that's where the skill is built, in the discipline. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter if you are trying to learn piano, or trying to get in shape, or trying to rule the world, your world anyways, you know, like, it doesn't, all of those things, you have to master yourself first. That's what that middle part is. People want to skip the middle part. They're just like, oh, this is the thing that I connect to with my Venus. I'm just going to jump straight to the end to having it. You have to work the process or it doesn't work. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you guys think. I'm really excited to get your feedback on this. We still have a lot more to go. This is just the first part. I'm totally open to ideas, ways that would help you integrate astrology with what I'm reading. If you want to go get this book and read it yourself, that's, I would recommend that, because sometimes having somebody read something to you, you don't comprehend it as well as you do if you're reading it yourself, or if you're listening to your own Audible, because then you don't have somebody stopping every 5 seconds excuse me, to give their own input and all that kind of thing, like I'm doing, their own commentary, if you will. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and I can't wait for the next one.